Why are certain books banned? The official answer usually speaks of religious, political, or cultural censorship, but the truth is much deeper. Some books are erased from history because they contain secrets that challenge the very structure of reality. They were not prohibited by mistake. They were silenced because they speak too much. And among these hidden texts, there is one book so powerful, so enigmatic, that even today, few dare to mention it. The Sefer HaTemunah. What is in this book that makes it so dangerous? What did the mystical rabbis discover centuries ago that could redefine everything we know about time, space, and existence itself? The Sefer HaTemunah is not just an esoteric treatise. It is a map that describes the cyclical nature of reality and, more disturbingly, the inevitable destruction of everything we know. Written by Kabbalists who believed they had received direct revelations about the hidden mechanics of the universe, this book suggests that we are living at the end of a great cosmic cycle. And when this cycle ends, the reality as we know it may simply cease to exist. And here is the most frightening question. All indications are that this moment is much closer than we imagine. According to the ancient Kabbalists, reality is not fixed. It is composed of vibrations, codes, and invisible mathematical structures. But when these vibrations change, when the cycle reaches its breaking point, everything transforms. This is not just mysticism. Today, quantum physicists confirm that matter at its core is not solid, but merely a projection of frequencies. This means that if the frequency of reality changes, everything that exists could collapse into something completely different. Have you ever felt that the world seems increasingly unstable, as if something is about to change irreversibly? Perhaps this transition has already begun. The rabbis who studied the Sefer HaTemunah did not speak of an apocalypse in the traditional sense. They spoke of a cosmic reset, a moment where the laws of existence are rewritten. A new set of rules takes control, and everything that has been built until now becomes irrelevant. This has happened before. The book suggests that our reality is not the first. Other worlds existed before us, each governed by completely different principles, and all of these worlds, without exception, came to an end. But there is something even stranger in this forbidden book. It mentions a central mystery, something that could radically change the way we understand creation itself. This secret involves the hidden name of God, a name that, according to the Kabbalists, is the key that sustains reality. The problem? This name is changing. And when it changes completely, the universe we know may cease to exist. What does this mean for us? What happens when one reality dissolves to make way for another? The Sefer HaTemunah suggests that there is no escape. We are moving towards an inevitable cosmic event. The only question is, are we ready for it? Today, we will explore the depths of this forbidden knowledge, reveal its darkest secrets, and try to understand if we are truly living on the brink of the end of reality. What happens when the code of the universe is rewritten? It is time to find out. Welcome to Occultum Veritas. Since ancient times, mystics and scholars have tried to understand the cycles that govern reality. The Sefer HaTemunah states something radical. The universe is not a unique and definitive creation, but rather a living organism that undergoes periodic changes, governed by 7 great cosmic cycles. Each of these cycles is associated with one of the 7 primordial Hebrew letters, and each one alters the fundamental laws of existence. But here is the point that truly disturbs those who dare to study this book. We are at the end of the current cycle. This means that reality as we know it is about to change irreversibly. Ancient Kabbalists describe these cycles as gigantic eras of creation and destruction. Each one brings a unique configuration of time, space, physical laws, and consciousness. When a cycle ends, everything that existed becomes irrelevant. New rules take over, and existence reorganizes into a completely different state. If this seems like an abstract idea, think about what modern science has discovered about the nature of the universe. Quantum physics suggests that reality is malleable, and that our perception of time and space may be merely an illusion conditioned by the rules of our current cycle. Einstein himself proved that time is not fixed. It expands and contracts depending on speed and gravity. What does this mean? That what we call real may just be a temporary configuration within a larger structure, subject to changes so drastic that they are impossible to imagine. But if a cycle ends, how can we know what will come next? The Sefer HaTemunah does not provide direct answers. It merely suggests that the worlds preceding this one were so different that for us, they would be inconceivable. They would be realities with distinct physical laws, unimaginable forms of consciousness, and structures completely alien to what we consider possible. If this is true, then the question we must ask ourselves is not whether reality will change, but when it will happen. And if the signs we are already perceiving are indications that this transition has already begun. Are we feeling the dissolution of the rules of our world without even realizing it? And most importantly, is there something we can do before the cycle ends? The answer may be hidden within the pages of this forbidden book. If reality truly operates in cosmic cycles, then an inevitable question arises. What happens when one of these cycles comes to an end? The Sefer HaTemunah suggests that we are not merely living within a static matrix, but in a dynamic universe where everything, including the laws of physics, time, and consciousness, is fluid and subject to change. This ancient book does not only speak of the collapse of civilizations or the extinction of species, but of something much deeper, the very fabric of existence reconfiguring, as if we are about to cross a threshold from one set of cosmic rules to another, completely new one. According to Kabbalistic tradition, the universe was created through divine letters, sacred vibrational patterns that shape and sustain reality. The problem is that these structures are not permanent. Just as software can be updated, cosmic cycles indicate that with each transition, the source code of existence is altered. What does this mean in practice? That what we take for granted, matter, linear time, even our very identity, may not be something absolute, but rather a temporary configuration within a malleable reality. This resonates disturbingly with modern discoveries in quantum physics. Scientists have proven that what we call matter is, in fact, merely a vibration of energy within invisible fields. At the subatomic level, particles appear and disappear seemingly from nowhere, moving in ways that defy any Newtonian logic. Quantum mechanics shows that reality only manifests in a fixed way when it is observed. That is, there is something behind the physical universe that shapes it at every moment. Now, connect this to the Kabbalistic concept of the Sefer HaTemunah. If the universe is about to enter a new cycle, this could mean that the rules of observation of reality are about to change completely. What if, suddenly, matter begins to behave differently? What if human consciousness itself starts to operate under a new paradigm where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual become irrelevant? The scholars of the Sefer HaTemunah warn that this transition is not merely a theoretical event. It could be a catastrophic one. The texts mention worlds prior to ours that simply ceased to exist when the cycle changed. If this has happened before, what prevents it from happening again? Perhaps that is why this book has been considered so dangerous. It suggests that our existence is not guaranteed, that everything we consider real could be swept away to make way for a new cosmic order. This explains why some spiritual traditions insist so much on the need to awaken consciousness. If we are truly approaching the end of a cycle, it means we are about to enter a state of transition. And those who are not prepared may simply be erased from this new configuration. Now think about what is happening in the world today. Have you ever felt that something is wrong, that time seems to be speeding up, that reality has become unstable in some way? Many people report feeling a growing sense of disconnection, as if the very fabric of existence is becoming thinner. Seemingly impossible events are becoming more common, from strange, cosmic phenomena to scientific discoveries that challenge our conceptions of space and time. What if all of this is a symptom that change has already begun? The Sefer HaTemunah does not present a clear solution for what we should do, but it leaves a clue. Understanding the vibrational nature of reality may be the key to surviving the transition. If everything is energy and frequency, then those who can align their consciousness with the new structure may cross this threshold without being erased. But this raises another, even more disturbing question. Are we already being tested? If reality is about to change, it means that human perception itself may be being filtered, separating those who are ready for the next cycle from those who are still trapped in the old structure. This would explain why so many spiritual traditions speak of a great awakening. But is this awakening a call to enlightenment, or a warning that time is running out? If the Sefer HaTemunah is correct, then everything we know is on the brink of a cosmic transition, and there is no escaping it. But before understanding where we are going, it is essential to comprehend what is sustaining our reality at this very moment. The central question raised by the book is that the structure of existence is not fixed, but maintained by a delicate balance, grounded in vibrational patterns and subtle forces that operate beyond what our senses can perceive. The most alarming point of this theory: this balance has been broken before. According to the Sefer HaTemunah, our reality is not the first, and possibly will not be the last. The book describes 6 eras prior to ours, each associated with a different set of cosmic laws. In other words, entire worlds existed before this one, governed by completely different realities. They emerged, reached their peak, and then collapsed, giving way to new universes with distinct rules. The problem? The fact that all these previous worlds were destroyed. And now, according to the calculations of ancient Kabbalists, we are approaching the end of the 7th cycle, the last before a total transformation. If the predictions of the Sefer HaTemunah are correct, this means that our reality has already entered its final phase of existence, and that soon, the forces sustaining our universe may dissolve, taking with them everything we know. But what would this collapse look like? If we think that reality is sustained by vibrational frequencies, then a collapse would not necessarily mean a physical explosion or destruction in the classical sense. Instead, it could be something much deeper, a change in the very structure of existence. Imagine if, from one moment to the next, the laws of physics as we know them simply stopped functioning in the same way. Time could cease to be linear. Matter could lose its cohesion. The concept of individuality could dissolve, merging us with a new type of consciousness. In other words, the universe we know could simply dissolve like a dream upon waking. Does this sound like an absurd theory? Not to modern physics, Today, scientists are beginning to realize that space-time itself may not be a fixed feature of the universe, but rather an emerging construct, something that exists only while there is a consciousness to observe it. Studies in quantum physics suggest that reality only manifests when it is measured, which raises a disturbing question. If our perception changes, would the universe itself change along with it? If we apply this logic to what the Sefer HaTemunah suggests, then the end of the current cycle may not be a destruction in the material sense, but a transition to a completely different state of existence. This means that instead of collapsing into the void, we could simply awaken to a new way of being, a reality where what we know as matter, time, and identity no longer exist in the way we understand today. And this leads us to one of the most enigmatic concepts of the Sefer HaTemunah, the mystery of the divine letters and the hidden name of God. In Kabbalah, it is believed that the true name of God is not just a title, but a vibrational code that sustains all of creation. Each cosmic cycle would be governed by a variation of this name, altering the very nature of reality. And according to ancient writings, we are now at the moment when this name is about to change once again. Does this mean we are about to witness a complete rewriting of existence? Whatever the answer, the fact is that more and more signs indicate that something is approaching. The increase in global instability, the collective feeling that time is speeding up, the growing interest in spiritual themes, and science finally beginning to touch on concepts that were once considered pure metaphysics. All of this may reflect that we are nearing the threshold of a new era. But the big question remains, is there any way to prepare for this change? Or are we all destined to be swept into a new cycle with no control over what comes next? If the Sefer HaTemunah is correct, the answer may lie with those who can transcend the limitations of common consciousness. Those who understand the structure of reality, who master the power of vibration and intention, may be the only ones capable of navigating this transition without being dissolved along with the old world. But this requires a level of understanding that few possess, and the time to achieve it may be running out. If there have already been 6 worlds before ours, what happened to them? How did these realities collapse? The Sefer HaTemunah does not describe these previous eras as mere extinct civilizations. It speaks of entire universes, each governed by different physical and spiritual laws, each built upon a distinct sacred name. And if these worlds cease to exist, it means that the destruction of our reality is not just a possibility. It is an inevitable event. But what exactly does the destruction of a world mean? When we think of catastrophes, we imagine cosmic explosions, gravitational collapses, apocalyptic events. However, according to Kabbalistic tradition, true destruction is not external. It occurs at the level of the vibrational structure of reality. The worlds prior to this one were not simply annihilated. They disintegrated, dissolving into states of existence that our minds cannot conceive. This leads us to a fundamental concept of the Sefer HaTemunah, the impermanence of form. The idea that reality can change radically is not new. Various mystical traditions speak of cycles of creation and destruction. In Hinduism, we have the yugas, great cosmic eras that end with the dissolution and recreation of the universe. In Gnosticism, there is the idea that this world is a temporary illusion that will dissolve when the true light is revealed. Even the Mayans believed in cycles of creation and destruction, where each era was erased to make way for a new configuration of the cosmos. The Sefer HaTemunah takes this concept further. It suggests that each cycle is linked to a specific state of consciousness. This means that the beings that existed in previous cycles did not simply disappear, they were absorbed into a new state of reality. In other words, our current consciousness only exists within the rules of this cycle. When it ends, what we know as human consciousness may simply cease to be relevant. This would explain a strange phenomenon that many mystics report, the feeling that reality is becoming less stable. Many people say that time seems to be passing more quickly, that the world is becoming increasingly chaotic, that impossible events are happening more frequently. Could this be a symptom that the cycle is coming to an end? If the laws of existence are being rewritten, are we already beginning to feel the effects of this? The rabbis who studied the Sefer HaTemunah believed that only those who understood this transition could escape dissolution. And here arises an even more radical concept: the idea that reality is not fixed, but rather a collective agreement based on vibrational frequencies. If the cycle is changing, it means that the rules of this agreement are being rewritten, and those who do not adapt may simply be erased. But is there a way out? Some spiritual traditions believe that by raising our vibrational frequency, we can transcend destruction and connect to the next phase of existence. This fits perfectly with the Kabbalistic concept of the Tree of Life, a map that describes the different states of consciousness that the soul can achieve. If we are indeed approaching the end of this cycle, then only those who can access higher levels of consciousness will be able to cross this threshold intact. This would explain why so many esoteric philosophies speak of the importance of spiritual awakening. It may be that the true function of these practices is not just self-knowledge, but preparation to survive the collapse of a cosmic cycle. And what if the collapse has already begun? If the Sefer HaTemunah is correct, then the world we know is already dissolving. But we are so trapped in our limited perceptions that we cannot see it. Our minds are programmed to see reality as something fixed, solid, unchangeable. But what if this solidity is just a temporary illusion? What if the truth is that everything is already fragmenting, and only those who are prepared will be able to perceive this change before it is too late? The question that remains is, how can we prepare? If reality is about to be rewritten, those who can understand the fundamental principles that sustain existence may have an advantage. But for that, one must first abandon the idea that the reality we know is permanent. Everything is vibration. Everything is frequency. And if we do not learn to navigate these changes, we may just be another forgotten fragment when the next cycle begins. The real question is not whether this collapse will happen. The question is, are you ready for it? If there is a central secret in the Sefer HaTemunah, it lies in what sustains reality itself, the hidden name of God. But what does this really mean? In the Kabbalistic tradition, it is believed that creation did not happen by chance, but was woven by divine vibrations. The sacred name of God is not just a word, it is a vibrational code that sustains the entire structure of reality. Mystical rabbis claimed that this name is the foundation of everything that exists, and that each cosmic cycle is linked to a different version of this name. This means that when a cycle ends, the name changes, and when this happens, the old structure of reality simply ceases to exist. But there is something even more disturbing. Some sources suggest that the name is already changing. This idea is not as absurd as it seems. We know that vibration is the basis of all matter, from the strings of string theory to the quantum patterns that form the universe. The Sefer HaTemunah suggests that just as DNA contains the instructions to build a living being, The divine name contains the instructions that define reality. If this code is altered, the universe reconfigures. What does this mean for us? If we are in a moment of transition, this would explain why reality seems to be becoming increasingly unstable. Events once considered impossible are becoming common. People report a feeling of displacement, as if the very structure of time and space is changing. The global increase in inexplicable phenomena, the sensation that time is speeding up, the growing interest in esotericism and spiritual awakening. All of this could be symptoms of the fact that the vibration of existence is changing. But what happens when the divine name changes completely? If we follow the logic of the Sefer HaTemunah, it means that the current world will no longer be sustainable. Just as a machine that operates with a certain software would cease to function if we tried to run a completely different code, our reality may be heading toward a moment where it simply cannot continue to exist in the way we know. And here arises a crucial question. Do we have any choice? If the universe operates by vibrational patterns, then perhaps those who can align their own frequencies with the new cycle may survive the transition. This would explain why so many spiritual traditions speak about the importance of awakening consciousness. It may be that ancient teachings about enlightenment, mind expansion, and raising vibration are not just metaphors, but practical instructions for navigating a real cosmic event. What would happen to those who do not adapt? The darkest answer is that they will simply disappear, but not in the physical sense. What the Sefer HaTemunah suggests is even stranger. The souls that cannot vibrate at the frequency of the new cycle will not be destroyed, but rather absorbed, fragmented, or dissolved into a new state of existence, a state that we may not even be able to conceive within the current rules. This connects directly with a question that few dare to ask. Has this happened before? If there were 6 worlds before ours, then what happened to the consciousnesses that lived in them? Did they evolve and move on to the next level, or were they dissolved like remnants of obsolete software? And if the answer is the latter, what does that mean for us now? The truth is that we do not know what happens when a cycle ends. Perhaps some will manage to make the transition, while others remain stuck in the old vibration, unable to exist in the new world. Perhaps there are beings that came from previous cycles and are still here, observing what happens when a universe dissolves. Or perhaps we are living in the last cycle, the moment where all previous realities converge into a single endpoint. What we know is that the name is already changing. And if this is true, then we are living in the very moment where the old reality begins to dissolve. The question now is no longer if this will happen. The question is, what comes next? And more importantly, how can we prepare for what is to come? If the idea of cosmic cycles and changes in the structure of reality sounds familiar, it is because it is not exclusive to the Sefer HaTemunah. In various cultures around the world, we find myths and doctrines that speak of eras of creation and destruction, and all these traditions seem to point to the same inevitable event, the collapse of reality and the birth of a new world. Hindu cosmology, for example, speaks of the yugas, enormous cyclical periods of humanity's rise and decline. According to the Vedas, we are living in the Kali Yuga, the age of decadence, where truth is obscured, morality collapses, and humanity loses its connection to the divine. But the most concerning detail? Just like in the Sefer HaTemunah, the Vedic texts say that the Kali Yuga ends with a great cosmic reset, where the rules of existence are rewritten and a new reality emerges. The Maya also had a similar concept. They spoke of cycles of creation, where each era ended in destruction, only to give way to a new beginning. The famous Mayan calendar, which many associated with the end of the world in 2012, actually did not predict a literal apocalypse. It marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. This aligns perfectly with the idea in the Sefer HaTemunah that each cycle is sustained by a specific vibration that, when transformed, redefines the very nature of reality. And this idea is not just found in ancient cultures. Plato, one of the greatest philosophers in history, described in his writings the theory of the great years, where entire civilizations were erased and recreated in cosmic cycles. He spoke of a periodic destruction of the world, caused by forces beyond our control, something that sounds alarmingly similar to what the Sefer HaTemunah suggests. But perhaps the most intriguing connection is with Hermetic teachings. In ancient Egypt, priests taught that, as above, so below, suggesting that the structure of the universe follows repetitive patterns like an infinite spiral of creation and destruction. Hermeticism speaks of a cycle of ascent and fall of human consciousness, a cycle where those who awaken to the true nature of reality can transcend the impending collapse. What do these traditions have in common? They all suggest that what we call reality is not static. It follows a flow, a hidden rhythm, an invisible programming that defines its existence. And they all point to the fact that we are living at the end of a cycle. The question, then, is not just whether this event will happen, but when. And if these traditions are correct, then the dissolution of our reality may be a process that has already begun. Have you ever felt that the world is becoming increasingly chaotic, as if we are living in a transitional period where everything seems to be falling apart? This is not a coincidence. In all mystical traditions that speak of cosmic cycles, there is a common characteristic. The signs of the end appear before the total change. In the Sefer HaTemunah, this transition is described as a period where the energies of the previous cycle begin to disintegrate, while the energies of the new cycle start to manifest. This would create a state of confusion, where the laws of reality become increasingly unstable. And this is exactly what many people report feeling these days. If all these cultures spoke about the same phenomenon, it means that the Sefer HaTemunah may not be an isolated case. It could be just a piece of a larger puzzle, an ancestral knowledge that has been fragmented over time. But then the most important question arises: what can we do with this information? If the world is changing, if the reality as we know it is about to be reshaped, is there any way to navigate this transition without being destroyed along with the old world? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain: time is running out. If there is something that the Sefer HaTemunah teaches us, it is that reality is not permanent. What we take as certain, time, matter, our identities, may just be a temporary configuration within a much larger system, a cosmic cycle that has existed before and will inevitably come to an end. Now we know that this forbidden book is not just a mystical text lost in time. It is a warning. It describes something that has happened before and that, according to the ancient Kabbalists, is about to happen again. If we are indeed living the last stage of this cycle, then everything we know may be on the brink of dissolution. But what does this mean for you? It means that you have a choice. Most people will continue living as if nothing is happening. They will ignore the signs, cling to old structures, believing that the world they know is eternal. But some people, those who truly understand what is happening, will have the chance to prepare for what comes next. And how does this preparation happen? Not through fear, not by accumulating material resources or trying to escape to some safe place. The only possible preparation for an event of this magnitude is the expansion of consciousness. Those who understand how reality works, who learn to raise their frequency, who connect with the forces that govern this cycle, will have the chance to cross to the next level without being dissolved in the process. This explains why, in recent years, interest in esoteric and occult knowledge has grown exponentially. It is as if, unconsciously, part of humanity has already been sensing this change and seeking answers. If you have made it this far, it means you are part of this group, those who are ready to see beyond the illusion and prepare for the transition. The question now is, what are you going to do with this information? Will you ignore it and go back to normal programming? Or will you start seeking the answers that no one wants you to discover? If you want to understand more about the hidden workings of reality and prepare for what is to come, continue this journey. Leave your thoughts on this revelation in the comments and subscribe to the channel, because there are still many more forbidden truths to be uncovered. Time is running out. Reality is changing. The only question that remains is, are you ready? If you are, keep watching the next video.